Hello and welcome. Today's report exposes the entirely spurious arguments for banning Western Australia's live sheep trade and the largely unfounded animal welfare concerns. The primary argument for banning live sheep exports centres on misleading and unfounded animal welfare concerns. Advocates for the ban highlight alleged incidents of animal suffering during long sea voyages, particularly those to the Middle East, where sheep are allegedly exposed to extreme heat, overcrowding, inadequate ventilation, and poor conditions leading to distress and mortality. While these baseless accusations pile on, they're never backed up by factual proof or supporting evidence. Conversely, an independent film crew documented a complete export voyage with qualified vets on board and found no cause for alarm whatsoever. Nevertheless, hysterical animal welfare claims are widely propagandised and egregiously exaggerated to foment public and political pressure to destroy the live sheep export industry. This ongoing deception is significantly aided and abetted by the moral turpitude of mainstream media's corrupt collusion. So let's examine the economic importance of this unjustified embargo. An underground militia of ban proponents disingenuously argue that live sheep exports represent only a small fraction of Australia's broader sheep industry. In 2023, live sheep exports by sea were valued at around $77 million. Supporters of this seditious ban ludicrously contend that the industry can transition to alternative markets, such as domestic processing and meat exports, especially with communistic Big Brother government assistance. The federal government has proposed an insulting $107 million support package to help farmers adapt, including funds for imaginary new opportunities and pipe-dreamed international marketing. Deluded advocates argue that a planned transition, as seen in New Zealand and the UK, can help mitigate negative impacts. But polling indicates that a majority of West Australians do not support the ban, citing the deceptive propaganda determining societal attitudes towards animal welfare and ethical food production. Ban opponents are not limited to urban areas, with predominantly misinformed city dwellers backing the hostile action. Western Australia accounts for 99% of Australia's live sheep exports, making the trade far more significant at the state and regional level than nationally. Industry groups and regional governments repeatedly prove that the ban will have a disproportionate economic impact on rural communities, risking the viability of sheep farming, sabotaging farm incomes, and leading to job losses across the supply chain from farmers, shearers, to transport and logistics workers. Estimates suggest the calamitous ban will cost the upper Great Southern region alone between $475 and $792 million over 20 years, with annual losses to the state's agricultural sector ranging from $22 million to $123 million, depending on farmers' ability to transition to cropping. That's whether they wanted to or not. The live export market provides a crucial price floor for sheep, especially those not suitable for domestic slaughter, and offers farmers a vitally important alternative market during dry seasons. The presence of live export buyers increases competition and improves prices for WA producers, who otherwise face fewer domestic processing options than their eastern counterparts. The loss of this market will widen the price gap between WA and eastern states, as was observed during previous export suspensions. Opponents of the ban argue that Australia's domestic processing facilities are already at capacity and faced chronic labour shortages. Furthermore, many importing countries prefer live animals due to religious requirements, lack of refrigeration, or concerns about the cost and freshness of processed meat. Simply shifting to meat exports will not meet these market needs, seriously undermining Australia's trade relationships and food security in importing countries. The ban will have devastating social consequences, including reduced incomes, catastrophic job losses, and declining mental health among a wide-ranging communities entirely dependent on the trade. The ripple effects extend to local businesses and communities reliant on the sheep industry. Industry leaders and political figures in Western Australia have framed the ban as a bullying imposition by urban elites and extreme activists, arguing it contemptuously disregards the interests of rural West Australians and their communities. The belligerently coercive ban has become a divisive issue, with calls for state and federal governments to urgently reverse this treasonous betrayal of the farming community. The debate over banning West Australia's live sheep trade is increasingly polarised. Supporters of the ban deviously emphasise fictitious animal welfare issues, the minuscule economic footprint of live exports nationally, and the absurd notion of industry transition with government support. Critically thinking opponents warn of severe economic, social, and irreversible community impacts in Western Australia. They further question the capacity of domestic processing to absorb the trade and rightly argue that the ban threatens the livelihoods of thousands in rural areas. The outcome hinges on how effectively damaging propaganda and misleading media reports can convince the ill-informed and willfully ignorant. It's also contingent on whether the perilously threatened sheep industry will survive in the absence of live exports. Well, it won't, because it can't, which is the primary objective of this controlled demolition of society. The United Nations-driven genocide of Agenda 2030 is focused upon the total elimination of all viable food production methods. We've witnessed this unrelenting assault upon farming communities worldwide, with devastating SARBs like mad cow disease obliterating massive sections of perfectly healthy beef production under criminally false pretenses. Sound familiar? Well, it should, because they unfailingly use the exact same fascist jackboot MO every time. They've callously wiped out untold healthy apiaries under the panic-mongering false threat of parasitical mite infection. The wanton destruction of countless healthy bees and hives went ahead despite no proof confirming any infection. Having spent the larger balance of my life in country WA, I have the pleasure and privilege of knowing many fine and upstanding farmers. I never met a single one who would countenance or tolerate cruelty to animals, let alone be party to the malicious allegations levelled by extreme activists. Neither were any stupid enough to allow the product of their labour to be needlessly mistreated and subsequently devalued prior to sale. Just as with the chicken little bedwetters of non-existent climate catastrophe, brainwashed animal welfare fanatics never allow truth to get in the way of globalist lies and deception. They greedily consume the toxic Kool-Aid of these deceptions without ever bothering with objective investigation themselves. None of the farmers I've known are given to chronic lying or contrived deception. Correspondingly, globalism's crime cartels masquerading as governments do nothing else other than bully, lie, cheat, swindle and steal. The alleged mistreatment of animals' basis for banning live sheep exports is a despicable lie. Yes, there was a troubled history, but as the aforementioned independent documentary video demonstrated, important lessons were learned and errors corrected to significant and lasting advantage. There are no legitimate reasons to ban this essential and internationally valuable industry. All specious objections are founded upon impoverished standards of care that are long since greatly amended. Fear-mongering, exaggeration, emotional provocation, and contrived deception. This highlights the urgency of, instead of we're becoming passive victims, we collectively resist the inhuman forces maliciously sabotaging farming communities and food production worldwide. Thank you for watching.